Welcome to the Arts to Hearts podcast, a show where we take a peek into the hearts and lives of our favorite artists. From running a creative business and practice to mindset, we talk about everything that goes behind into making a life and a career that you adore as an artist. Think of this as your happy hour with your favorite artist in your studio. Hear them share the messy and the wonderful side of creating and living a creative, heartfelt life within and outside our studios. As you tune in, be ready to be inspired and encouraged. I'm your host, Charuka Arora, an artist, designer, entrepreneur, and founder of Arts to Hearts project. Thank you so much for being here. Let's jump right in. Hey, you guys, welcome back. Welcome back. I hope you're having a great day. This is your host, Charuka. I feel extremely joyful today to be back here on this podcast. I think it's also because of the energy of our guest today. And it's 7 a.m. in the morning and I'm all cheery. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I'm sure we are all going to have lots of laughs and a blast. So, are you ready? Today's guest is our electric, joyful, colorful Sarah Stieber. Sarah is an artist based out of San Diego, and she's popular for her colorful, joyful paintings, her popular take paintings, which we're definitely going to talk about, and so much more. So I'm not going to take away all the fun, and I will definitely hand over to Sarah now. Welcome to the podcast, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Charuka. It's so nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. How are you doing?
I'm doing really great. Thanks to you because you let me reschedule when I felt really crappy last week. But now I'm like full of joy and my usual energy. So I'm ready to go, and I'm in awe of you for grinding this early in the morning your time at 6 p.m. my time and 7 a.m. Charuka's time.
No problem. I love beginning my days with these conversations and having this energy. And I think specifically with yours, I was like, when you messaged me and you were like, I'm not feeling great today, I was like, please don't do it today.
I know. She was like, no, we want your energy.
So we're happy to reschedule, but we want the best of you. And of course, for our listeners. Okay. Of course, a lot of our listeners would already know you, but let's say just for the sake of it, would you introduce yourself in a
Yes,
fun
of
way, in
course.
your way?
Oh my gosh, no pressure. All right, I am Sarah Stieber. I am an electric realism painter. I am also a tape artist, a muralist, and recently I've started designing a line of jewelry. So, very multimedia, multifaceted artist. I also love to create films about the inspiration behind my artwork, and I think that's the long of it.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, Sarah, here on Arts to Hearts, we definitely talk about your work and inspirations, your processes, and everything. But I think my favorite part is to know the real Sarah Stieber. I think to bring every guest here on the podcast, my aim is always to dig in and to know who you really are apart from what we see. So I'm going to dig in and I'm going to start from the beginning. Let's get to know who you were and who you are today. Let's talk a little about, first, where were you born and how were you as a child?
Yeah, I was born here where I live today in San Diego, California. And it surprises a lot of people, but I was a very, very shy child. I hardly spoke. My mom said I didn't say a word until I was 2 years old. And then I spoke in full sentences. So I think I had a very observant little quiet personality. I had an older brother at the time who was like bouncing off the wall. So I think he took up enough of the space and energy in a room, and I could just sit back and watch everything. And while I was a really shy kid, I was constantly drawing and painting. So I was one of those little girls that was like always with a pencil and crayons in my hands, always doodling, getting in trouble in school for like drawing in the margins of my essays. Like I just couldn't help it. And yeah, that was me before I kind of grew into myself.
Also, did you have any creative influences in your life when you were young? course.
Not so much. But what I did have that I am still to this day so grateful for is my mom has always nurtured, like from when I was 2 years old, she always knew I was going to be an artist when I grew up. She always
Wow.
supported me, nurtured me. She always was trying to find opportunities for me. She's like that kind
Oh,
of mover
that's
and a
so.
shaker mama. Yeah.
Oh my God,
And when I
that's
was
so
7 years
adorable.
old, I know. When I was 7 years old, we were on an airplane and she grabbed a magazine to like read with me on the flight, and there was an art contest for drawing the car you wanted to drive when you grew up, and it was through Road and Track magazine, which is a car magazine. And she encouraged me to enter this contest, even though I knew nothing about cars and did not and still do not care for cars at all. And I drew this painting called the Yin Yang Flyer, which is like shockingly similar to my work now. It had like a full rainbow background, and it was this car with yin yang wings and like with polka dots, black and white, and then there were these like screaming alien like people with multiple colors in the front seat.
Oh my
Anyway, and I won
God.
that contest that year and the year after. So I think from a very early
Wow,
age
not
I
only
was
one.
so I know, it's so crazy. And like they did not know what they were doing. Like Chakra, they it was like obviously their first year and they treated it way too seriously. Like they gave a huge amount of money for a child. They like gave me these VIP tickets to the car show. So I'm like 7 years old. I'm like at this Los Angeles car show, like shaking hands. They had like the giant checks that they present on
Yeah,
TV. They
yeah,
had one
yeah,
of those for
yeah.
me. And it was wild, and I was like in the newspaper and on the news. So I think that like really was a good example of like being a child. My mom loves to tell that story. I don't like to tell it quite as much, but it's a perfect combination of like I was this really shy kid, but my mom really nurtured me, and like art was always the way that like the thing that brought me out of myself. And then from a very early age, I was so privileged to have that kind of recognition that like I was a talented young artist, and like that I had validation from that early age was so formative, I think.
Wow, that's I think that's something that I have heard here on the podcast for the first time, which is amazing to hear. So that means you like when you were young and you always thought you will be an artist? Like when you grow up, this will be something that you'll do for a living as well? Did you always think about that?
Kind of. I went through phases. Like when I was young, it was like I remember being 2 years old and painting a rainbow and thinking I wanted to be an artist when I grew up. So like I knew like the truest me always wanted to be an artist. But then of course like you or I developed into like an angsty teenager where like practicality kicked in, and I thought, of course you can't be an artist. That's about as likely as being a rock star. Like that would never happen. What am I really going to do? So I
Yeah.
spent a couple years there trying to talk myself out of this like wholly impractical path. And then I ended up, and I thought because I was always like that personality, like I always have had really deep relationships with my friends. Like so many of my friends now I've been friends with since I was like 7 and 14 years old. I mean, I've like had these real lifelong relationships. I felt like I was always kind of like very empathetic and like holding people's problems for good or for bad. And so I figured, screw it. I should just be a therapist because I'm like, I may as well get paid for
Oh
all
my
of this.
God,
Yeah.
I think more than 50% on the podcast have said that they thought of being a therapist as an
Really?
all like
Oh
yeah.
my gosh. You
Honestly,
are
it
cracking the
it has been
code.
me.
Really?
I'm analyzing the data now, but yeah,
Oh
even
my
for me,
gosh.
I felt like I was always interested in psychology, and
Yeah.
I thought, I will be like a because in India therapy wasn't too much of a trend at that point, and I was like, I'll become this psychologist, like more like a more medical kind of a way, but someone who gets to deal with this whole human mind and all of that. So it's so strange that how all of us have so much similar to think about.
Oh, that's so interesting, Charuka. And I'm actually not surprised at all that you thought about being a psychologist or a therapist. That definitely rings true, just the brief amount that we've talked so far. But
Thank you.
I think that painting is actually so similar, or at least figurative painting, and the painting that I think a lot of the guests that have been on your podcast
Yeah.
are drawn to is so similar to
Yeah, that's
therapy and
true.
to psychology. And I actually like had this formative experience I can talk about later, but like, or do you want me to talk about how I like
Yeah,
made the
absolutely.
switch?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I thought I was going to be a therapist, but like still always was painting and drawing, and then thought like there was, of course, like my real true self was like, Sarah, go do art. And so I had convinced my like practical self convinced myself that I was just going to go to college and study art, like be an art major, but I'd go to like a liberal arts kind of college and I would minor in psychology, and then I'd go to grad school and like get on with my life once I got the art thing out of my system. And so that's what I did. And I was like painting all the time, but like secret, but convinced that I would do the
Yeah.
practical path because I am kind of practical in some ways. Anyway, and so, but then when I was, I think, 19 or 20, I got to go to Israel for the birthright trip. Have you heard of that?
No,
It's
no.
it's this trip where a lot of Zionists, so like pro Israeli people, fund people of Jewish heritage to like go to Israel for free for a 10-day trip. And I
Wow.
think the goal is, of course, very political, but when you're
Yeah,
20
of
years
course.
old and somebody's offering you a free trip to Israel, you take it. So, anyway, I was on this trip and we were at the Holocaust Museum, and I
Oh my
remember
God.
walking through the exhibits, and it was like so powerful and horrible. But because I had just come out of my psychology classes, I was analyzing and justifying, like, oh, that makes sense. Like, right, groupthink, or like, oh, yeah, conformity. And, it was sort of like justifying the like most atrocious event, or one of the atrocious events of history, through these psychological principles. And then I kind of like I stopped myself and was like, Sarah, no, no, no. Like, this is not the path for you. Like, you're trying to analyze things that cannot be understood, and you need to like spend your life exploring. Like, that's a better use of your
Yeah.
time and your talents, is to like explore human nature rather than analyze human nature. And I knew like that art was the closest and most beautiful tool that I had to do that with. So it was kind of at that point that I was like, no, I'm going to be an artist. Like, psychology is not, even though I'm very interested in psychology still, it's like
Yeah.
I don't pretend to have the answers now. And I'm just more
Yeah.
interested in the exploration and the color and the joy, and
I
living on
love
that
that
side.
explanation, actually. I think I love that because I also feel that a lot. Um, because I think, being a therapist or even a psychologist, all of these things, I often think about this a lot of times. I would always think, okay, what if I wasn't doing this? What else could I do? And
Mm-hmm.
like mentioned, I've had several things done in the past. So I would be like, since I've touched all of this, what if I would have even touched this? And I felt like with art, the best thing is that you get to explore, but you do it in a very therapeutic way, but
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to take that entire pressure of finding all the answers or
Right.
navigating everything, but you can just do it at your own pace. And it's such an amazing process, that because with the art that we make, it not we actually are doing it for a very selfish reason, because for first and foremost, it is a therapy for us. But the beauty of this process is how it becomes unknowingly, also unintentionally, also it becomes a therapy for someone else. Wonderful. But yeah, you would make a nice therapist though.
Oh, thank you. You would too. Maybe in our next life we'll do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love what you said
I don't
about
think we'll have to wait for the next life. People like us who are multi passionate, I don't think we can make it through the next life without trying
doing
everything that
10
we want
things.
to.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. You're right.
So
So we have that in common too, then, huh?
maybe I'll have you again, and by that time, who knows what you're adding
No,
to your bucket?
that's gonna be weird. Let's do it.
Yes, done. Let me know when you're doing this, and we'll have you back again.
Okay, deal. Whether or not it's in the arts,
Yeah.
I'm sure it will be. But yeah, I love that thing, that what you said about like how art is it's sort of selfish and it's like exploratory, but we're also helping. Work can obviously be such a strong impact, makes such a strong impact on other people. And it reminds me of like this painting that I made recently called Soft Power. It's like when you go in with like guns blazing and waving your flag and really standing for something. It's like people who oppose what you believe might feel like immediately like they need to like retreat from that, or they don't want to listen, right? But if you're coming in with like beauty and joy and something like as ethereal as painting or fashion or music, I think it's a lot easier to
Yes,
like
ma'am.
explore ideas in a way that like that people are more willing to listen and contribute to the
Yeah,
conversation.
that's very true. Actually, that's a really good point. Okay, let's get back to you now. Okay,
Okay.
so you thought you wanted to be a therapist, but then you were like, okay, no, you were okay. Last time we spoke, you were in Israel. Let's go back to Israel.
Oh, okay. So then I got back to school and thought, and I went to college at Boston University, and I was just about to graduate, and I thought, well, why don't I? Well, first, when was it? What was the order of operations? Oh, yeah, I studied abroad in Italy.
Yeah, I had that. I was like, when did you go there?
Yeah, I almost skipped over it. um,
It's okay.
it's no big deal.
No.
Just kidding. And it that was
Yeah.
a really cool experience for me because I got to paint in this studio, like
Venice studio.
in a Venice studio, but it was like off of Venice. It was in an island off of Venice. So I had to like take a
Oh
little
my,
boat there every day. It was
oh my
so
God.
magical and strange and
Wow.
mystical. And
How
our
long were you
professor,
there?
I was there for 5 months.
Oh my
It
God.
was amazing. Ugh,
Oh me, I've been to Venice. I think I was there for a couple of days, and
yeah.
I think I know what you're talking about. But I can't even imagine how beautiful that would be for
Oh my
5 months.
Oh my gosh, it was so crazy. And Charuka, I have to just segue for a second to tell you that I have been dreaming about Venice ever since. So this was like 11 or 12 years ago. This was a while back, and I haven't been back, but it's like when you've lived somewhere for so long, it like seeps into your subconscious. So I dream like very often that like I'm lost and I'm walking in Venice and I don't know, or
Oh,
I'm stuck somewhere and I can't like make it to see the sights, or it's like I'm always like trying to get back there in my
oh
subconscious.
my.
And I just booked. I'm getting married this in 2 months, and we just booked our honeymoon, and we're flying out of Venice. So I'm gonna get to like see it again, and I'm so excited. Thank you.
Congratulations, congratulations, of course, on your marriage, but also going back to Venice. So that
Oh,
would be
thank
very
you.
exciting for you. And I hope that you live that dream. And I can completely, because so I also spent a couple of months in Italy when I was post graduating. I stayed in Milan, but
Oh,
we would,
cool.
we would go to Florence, Venice, Rome, and like we traveled
Wow.
over. I think I was there for a couple of months, and we traveled to Switzerland, all of these places. And
Oh, amazing.
it's been a couple of years. I think it's been 7 years,
Mhm.
7 or 8 years that I went. And even till today, because it's still, I think now it feels very unreal for me because it's been so long. And I would be like, I in India where I live, it's extremely hot, and you can't really like. I love the European streets where you could just walk there, have a bottle of wine, and carefree. And we just like I was way more carefree than I am today, and
Yeah.
it would even till today I feel like I want to feel that fresh air, that cold wind with the sun and those flowers and those yogurts and those gelatos, and like, oh my God, you've
Oh my
literally
gosh. Well,
literally
we
got that.
gotta go. This is the
I
time.
really,
This is your
I
eat, pray,
really
love
have
moment.
to.
I can feel it.
I think once everything settles down, I don't know when that's going to happen, but I'm sure I really want to get out of here for sure.
That sounds good. Yeah, put it out there, and hopefully, when things settle
Yeah.
down, you're able to make the trip
Yeah.
and eat the
My
gelato.
first
And
manifestation is to come and meet all of you. I've been putting this off my table for so many, like I think almost 1 and 2 years now. So yeah, let's make that happen. I hope I can meet
deal.
all of you, and then we can all go to Venice.
Oh,
How does that sound?
fabulous. Well, I'll do a retreat there. That sounds amazing.
Done.
Okay,
That would
great.
be so fun.
We figured
Okay,
it
done.
all out.
Now that we could talk about Venice all the time. I mean, for hours, but then I can't still go. So let's come back to you.
Okay. We keep getting sidetracked about fun,
Yeah.
exciting things.
You were in
Okay,
Venice in your
I was
studio.
in Venice in my studio, and I was obviously at the time I was very interested in psychology, and I was starting to think that I wanted to really pursue painting, but integrate psychology. And then up until that point, I grew up in San Diego. I went to school in Boston, then I went to Italy, and all three places, everyone had such distinct style. Like I'm very interested in fashion, like you said, you and your mom are were, and I was very aware of people's personal style, and in all three of the places that I had lived so recently, like so close to each other, everyone like dressed so differently, in
Yeah.
just those three places, you know what I mean? And so I started seeing people as like walking reflections of their environment, and started thinking about, well, like if the way that you look and the way that you dress changes so drastically just based on, living across the
Yeah.
country or living, across the pond, then what other things and what other aspects of our personality and our being are impacted by like the social forces that are shining on us. And so I had brought with me to this Venice studio these colored lights, and I shine them on the models to kind of explore that idea of like, what are these like plasticky social artificial forces that shine on us, and how can I express that in figurative art? And so what I did was I had this studio that had um, four walls or three walls, and then I went into the alleyway, and found a giant piece of cardboard and like staple gunned myself in. It was a total safety hazard, and plugged in the lights and shined colored lights
Amazing.
on my models, and then painted in the studio. And so it was this experiment of like, not only was I experiencing how the colored light would change the way the model would look, but it would also change my perception, because of course
Perception.
if you're in a dark space and you have these colored lights shining, it totally shifts your perception of
Shifting.
any color. So I would squeeze out all my tubes of color, and then forget, like consciously forget what I squeezed out. Like I would not be like, that's ultramarine blue. I'd just be like, I don't know what that brown blob is. But because of course with the color it changes,
Yeah.
the colored light changes the color of the tube of the paint, or
Colors.
our
Yeah.
perception of it. So anyway, I painted the whole painting in this box, which I later called the electric box. And I would take the painting out of the studio, and then everything looked super electric when I walked out, because if I had a red light
Everything.
shining inside the studio that I was in there for 8 hours, I walk out and it looks like the whole world is lime green, and then the colors of my painting just like erupted. So I called that the electric box, and from there I started referring to my style as electric realism.
Electric. Really.
Yeah, and that was sort of my breakthrough entryway into kind of starting to figure out what my style is now, which is like figuring out a way to portray people that have really vibrant colors on them, but also have this synthetic quality, or this like they look natural, but they also look synthetic. I would say.
Yeah. Wonderful. That's interesting. That I think I did not know. I, of course, have seen your website and everything, but now I feel more connected to your work because it's just not the surface of what I see, but I
Mm.
can relate to what I see now. So I love that. I think that's why I love having all of you here. So then
Oh,
I can just,
cool.
stalk you guys and know what's happening. Perfect.
It's always
Okay,
good to have
let's
an
talk
inside
about,
scoop.
yes, exactly, just the
Uh-huh.
exclusive ones.
Oh yes.
Perfect. Let's talk about the tape. Okay, I have a lot of questions about this.
All right, let's
How?
talk about it.
How on how on earth are you doing that?
Oh my gosh.
How are you making these realistic, these mind-blowing paintings that don't look like tape paintings at all? Are you are you painting with tape? What are you exactly doing? Tell us about that.
Okay, so for those of you who have not seen, or seen my work, I make paintings with tape. Like, I call them tape paintings, and I have this 7 foot tall structure that I call a tape crate that I had built by a woodworker here in San Diego. That has like a 7 feet by 3 feet, like filled with rolls and rolls of colorful, shiny, sparkly, iridescent, transparent, like every kind of tape. Turns out tape has everything that my childhood dreamed of. It's like it's really magical. And I started painting with tape actually because about maybe 2 years ago, I went to a workshop for an artist, Cheryl Sorg, and she makes these gorgeous like color block shapes out of tape. So very different from the work that I'm making, but I was always so attracted to it. And oh, actually, wait, let me back up. Back when I was in Italy, then I returned to Boston, and I was still painting with the colored lights. But my first painting back, I was trying to explore this similar concept of how does society and like social forces shine on us. And so I painted a self portrait of me with my palms facing the viewer. And then
Okay.
the palms were overlaid in pink glitter paper. So that was like my
Okay.
first segue into
First.
what kind of led to the tape paintings. Like I've always been really attracted to this like sparkly, shiny thing. And I thought like, what a cool way to explore this idea that it's like, what is shining on this person that makes her like like her hands pink glitter? And then she had this like pink painted gleam in her eye. And I was like
Wow.
geeking out on it. I loved it. But my professor was
Wow.
like, Sarah, that is not serious. That is not painting.
Yeah.
You're a good painter. You should be painting like painting the textures and the colors that you're into and depicting them in paint, but like don't use mixed media. So then away I went for the next like 9 years, just painting all of the holographic and glittery and sparkly and reflective things that I was into until I found. Okay, now we're to the story. Now we're caught up until I found this artist Cheryl Sorg who was
So,
making these like beautiful tape paintings. That again were very different from mine, but like using these materials that I have just been so drawn to my whole life. And I went to this workshop and she was so generous and she had like tables upon tables of all of this tape that we could just mess with. She was like, go, like it was a free
wow.
for all. And I spent like 2 hours, like I probably shut the place down, like freaking out. And then and then I was like, oh my gosh, I need to like incorporate this into my work. So then I went back to my studio and started creating the series I later called Mixed Media Mini. So they were paintings with tape that incorporated, I'm sorry, paintings in paint that incorporated the tape as like the
Taping.
superpowers. And then from there, I was like, wait a minute, what if I could just use these like I use paint, like actually create the form of humans with tape? And I just started experimenting, and I know it seems crazy, but it is exactly
Yeah,
like
it does.
painting. It's like it's the same thing in my mind because the way I think about painting, I know, but the way I think about
And
painting,
these are not even flat paintings. I mean, you have the whole light, you have the contrast, you have the grades, the tints, the tones. Like you literally like it literally looks like a painting, but it's just a tape painting. And I was like, how are you? I mean, how are you doing this? How is she like adding these like layers and these colors and this whole gradation and all of that with tapes? I mean, how hard that must be.
oh my god, I'm loving this feedback. Thank you. I've only really started getting into them since quarantine, so I haven't talked to anybody about them. So as you're
talk
talking to me, I'm
talk
realizing like I don't know what am I doing.
how's
But
that? How
really,
are you doing?
okay, the best I can explain it is that like my painting style is I paint very directly, right? Which means that I use opaque colors of paint and I overlap colors of paint until I like narrow it down to the
Yeah.
desired shape and color and everything. So because I've had like the 10 years of practicing that with paint, I just once I got enough colors of tape,
So that was my
um,
second question.
yeah, well, I'm so lucky because when I started doing tape, I reached out to one company called Create Tapes based in Peckham in London, and they've been sending me all these amazing tapes. And then there's this other company, Hoopology, and they're based in Boulder, Colorado, and they're like for hula hoops, like people tape on
Oh,
their hula hoops, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
they have the most like exciting color changing tapes, and they've been sending stuff to me
Wow.
too. So now I have like quite the arrangement and I can really get into it with I mean I'm still looking for more tape distributors because like there's a couple skin tones that I need to really complete my arsenal, but yeah, I mean it's just I'm really taping just like I paint, like I'm just like cutting pieces of tape, pasting them on the palette or the I use plexiglass or a panel or whatever, like whatever hard surface I'm taping on, and then just build up the layers with like smaller and smaller little strips of tape until it looks like a painting, I guess.
How long does it take for you to finish one, let's say, an average size that you do?
Um, Probably
It
one
must
to
take
two
long.
weeks of like steady
Oh my
work.
God, I felt like you would do it for months because it
Yeah.
seems so hard. You make it look too easy, but honestly, it seems too hard because I feel like it's going to take forever to literally, like, you have to cut them, then stick them, and then layer them, and like every corner, every section. I mean, that would be a really tedious task.
Yeah, it's just the key is to really just not think about it. I know that's crazy to say, but it's like you
That's
can't really
true.
map it out. You just got to like treat it like you're painting, right? Like I had a professor in art school that said like when you're painting, you should be painting so fast that it's like you're running and like you're running so fast that you might trip over yourself. And it's
Oh
like
my
that's
God.
when you're like onto something, right? Like that's flow. And so I feel like if you're doing anything like with a lot of focus and you're just like
Yeah.
getting rid of all the like analytical thoughts, like you'll get there eventually.
Oh
It's
my
not
God.
that
Love
easy, but
that
you know what I
advice.
mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that advice. Okay. Okay. Before we go into the next section, I have one more question. Actually, two more. Uh, One is, of course, you are a multi-passionate. There's so much that you do. Like you have your own paintings, and you have variation in your paintings. Uh, you own a jewelry line now. You have also been doing murals, and I've seen you do great collaborations. My question is that, and I also know for a fact that you have created a lot of these opportunities for yourself. It's not been like, how has that been for you, with your work? Like you also mentioned, like, your art professor being saying it needs to be serious. How did you enter when you entered? How was that for you? And how did you find out or create these opportunities?
So the first question is how did I navigate like not taking myself too seriously and getting caught up in the stuffy art world agenda? Is that
Yeah,
kind of what you're asking?
yeah,
Well, I've actually really constantly am like navigating it. It's obvious, and I actually just listened to another one of your podcast interviews where you said that at the beginning of your painting career, you were very concerned with being taken as a very serious artist, and I think
yeah,
a lot of artists receive that messaging just over and over. It's just pounded into us. I'll give an example that I love to tell, but another art professor, I've always been super entrepreneurial, just like in my mindset. And I remember like when school was ending, of course, they didn't teach us anything about business. And I was just thinking like, okay, well, what am I going to do? What are my steps? What are my moves? And I approached this teacher and we were walking. I asked him what he thought about me applying to art fairs. And he stopped in his tracks and he looked at me and he said, Sarah, applying and showing in art fairs, like as an emerging artist, is the equivalent of wanting to be an actor and moving to Los Angeles and starring in a few pornos to get your start.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
So
this is
like
the
that,
worst that I've heard on the
yeah.
podcast.
That is like what we're up against as artists is like
Oh
people
God.
there's no knowledge of how to do it, but there's a lot of opinions about how not to do it. And I think that in my art career, I spent the first 5 years like just being entrepreneurial because I had to, because I was very determined and just pursuing every opportunity I could. And when there weren't opportunities for me, which of course there weren't any at the beginning, I just created
Mhm.
my own. So for example, like my first art show when I was still in college, I like got a coffee shop to show my work. I found a band, booked it, figured out how to get free drinks, and like made it a legitimate like big party, just like put a lot of hype into it.
Wow.
And like every opportunity from then was like that. Like I remember I got a, this might make you judge me, listeners, but I'm
Not
proud
at
of
all.
it. I got a speeding ticket and I didn't have the money to pay for it. And I was like, oh well, community service. I'll do community service. So I went to court, convinced the judge to let me do community service instead of paying. And then I found this art event that was a nonprofit, and I did my quote community service for putting on an art show where I ended up being the featured artist.
Oh my God.
So that
That
can be
is so amazing. Okay. You know, when you're saying this, when you share this incident, I think this is precisely what I have done. I mean, not just in the same way, of course. I mean, we've had our own experiences, but this is I think we all, if we all can have an approach like this, how you have, like the incident that you've mentioned, is an example of how you've turned an adversity, a problem, into something. You could cringe over it, you could cry over it, you could be miserable over it. Instead, you chose to first make do with what you had, and then you took one step further and you actually made it work for yourself as well. Even for me, in the past decade, I've been extremely entrepreneurial. I come from a very business class family, and like in the very beginning, I knew that I am someone who likes to work with people, but I'm also someone who likes to have a lot of control over what I want to create. And I knew that I always wanted to, like, do something on my own. And I always would start something like a side project, like a college project, or like a something. And other way, because I had no contacts, I am the first creative in my family who, who's ever done something like this, and I had zero contacts. I moved out of my own city, so I knew nobody, and there was nobody to show me the way or to even support me, and I of course had to make money. So I had to do a lot of things, like um I had to create for myself. Even I think for this podcast, for Arts to Hearts, I lacked immediate community, and I was so lonely, and I was really miserable, to be very honest, because I was around a very toxic environment, and I was like, I just can't deal with it. And I was like, I can only go two ways. I can cry about it, or I get over this fear of being seen, or like, all of these things, and I just do what I want, and I create what I don't have. And I think that was one of the biggest, like the best decisions I've made in my life, for Arts to Hearts, for my art career, to have this place, to have you here, to have this conversation. Otherwise, I would be in a corner and feeling lonely as hell today. I honestly don't have a huge community in my local, even in India. But I know I have so many friends, artists across the globe, and who I really feel connected to, who I feel supported with, and who I share this. When you're talking about this incident, it's lit me up, because it's a spirit that we all need to have, and I know it's not that easy, but do we even have a way out of it? What do you say?
Yeah, I love that. And that's so inspiring to hear about your story. And also, like, bravo and big snaps for starting a podcast. Like, what a genius way to get grab like a bunch of community and like become an expert in your field because you're talking about a thing, right? I mean, that's so cool. But sorry, the question was like, what do I think about, like, do we have a choice in the matter? I think
Yeah,
we do, but I think the point is that, like, often the fear is going to be there whether you ignore it or whether you overcome it or not. So it's like
yeah,
you can be, if, especially if you're starting out and you're green. Like, I had so much anxiety when I just got started and didn't know what I was doing and didn't know any artists in my community, and like was just driving up to Los Angeles with my paintings and like knocking on doors. Like, I was a baby. Like, I was terrified, but I learned pretty quickly that if you pretend that you're confident and you just say that you present that you're
yes,
doing something, like, no one knows better. Everyone's
yes,
so worried about themselves. They're not worried about whether you're legit. And
yeah.
so I just kind of kept showing up and kept showing up with that, like, stupid confidence or pretending to have the stupid confidence, and it works. I mean, it's amazing if you just do that. You can still
Yeah,
be afraid, and you should, I mean, that's not going to
I think
go
that stupid
away.
confidence takes over and just becomes real confidence.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. And now I'm like 10 years into this thing, and I'm like making a full-time living as an artist, like not even showing with galleries, just kind of doing my own thing, and it's like it's amazing. And I feel like the stupid confidence, it was like it was all an act before, and then I spent the last 10 years like painting these stupid confident, empowered, like self-aware, self-actualized women who like had all the things that I wanted. And it's like I feel like my art practice is just a constant practice in creating and sort of manifesting the things and the qualities and the attributes that I want to bring into my own life. And then it's like, well, if that's all you're thinking about and creating, then like, of course that's going to happen, right?
Oh my God. Yes, absolutely. And that's really, really inspiring. And I think what I love about you is you carry that energy even till today. This is our second call, the first call we had at Art Queens, and I think even then I could figure that out. And I think even now, I think it's been one of the smoothest and a very nice experience as a guest with me, for me and our team with you. And it just shows sometimes, even when you work with someone, it just shows how people appreciate or they value every little thing that they're doing and put that effort irrespectively of where they are. And I think that's such
Mm.
a great lesson for all of us. So yeah,
Hmm.
I would definitely shout out for you for that, because I think sometimes when we're struggling, we feel that we need to put an extra effort, but actually when we're not struggling is an actual question, that how much effort are we putting in anything and everything that we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I've been thinking about that, like, because this past I don't know, like 2 weeks, my business has been like sort of intentionally a little slower because my my employee's out of town, and I'm like, I can't, I don't like
Can-
want things to be crazy, so I'm just like, I'm kind of hiding away. I mean, I'm still posting all the time, like I'm still promoting,
yeah,
but I'm not like promoting the things that are going to make me have to like do a bunch of shipping, like meaning like stuff like that. And I'm like, wow, what a privilege to be like, to be able to, I'm not working, but I get
yeah,
to choose now, like, what are the things I want to build. And yeah, it's like,
yeah.
it's such an exciting place to be, but of course
Awesome.
it's
I think
always
I
still
will.
nerve-wracking. Sorry, to answer your question from very long time ago about like, how do you navigate, like, if you want to be an entrepreneurial artist, or if you want to be a gallery artist, or like, is that even a real thing? I will be perfectly honest. I am still navigating that. Like, I like to just say like I've like to
Yeah,
get on my platform and be like, you don't need a galleries. I really don't think you do. Like, most all of my success has not been through galleries so far in my career. And I'm also at a place where I'm like, man, I really need to be selling my art in New York, and I live on the other side of the country. Like, how am I going to
yeah,
manage that? And, and maybe that is a path that makes sense to go to in addition to the entrepreneurial path. So I think people just get caught up in like thinking that there's a right way to do things, and it only just stops
yeah,
us. I think the best way to do things is to just freaking do them. And I think most artists who I know who like are getting in their own way are just like overthinking and not do. I mean, it's important to think through things and like make smart decisions, but like keep pivoting to the next right thing, because at every stage in your career, in your life, there will be a next right thing, right? And like,
oh
I
my
think that
God,
it's like, if you're scared to try because you're like being told that you can't be selling at art fairs, well, you're going to miss the opportunity to like be the featured artist of the art fair, and then like collaborate with a dance troupe and be in the biggest newspaper in your city, and like create a dance performance art piece with your painting in front of like hundreds of people, which is what
oh my
happened
God,
at my art fair experience. Like,
yeah,
like, I feel like you can't limit yourself by like weird expectations that people have, that things are what, like, no one knows what anything is. Everybody's making it up. Like, that's all life is. So just do what
yeah.
works for you, I think.
Love that. Okay, quickly, I just wanted to touch upon this last experience that you've mentioned about, is the New York experience,
Uh-huh.
the Times
Oh,
Square, the
oh,
Samsung, if I'm not wrong.
yes. Okay, yeah,
Let's
we
talk
have to
about
talk
how,
about that.
yeah, we definitely have to. How did that
Yeah.
happen? And let's just go through your experience about that.
Okay, so this is so exciting because I mean, for obvious reasons, but also because it was the first opportunity that I had like very little say in. Like, I didn't create this opportunity for myself. Like, I didn't like hit up Samsung and be like, "Hey, Samsung." They just approached me, and it was so validating because, and I don't want to get too much into this, but I was on the brink of what I thought was going to be my most exciting, most affirming mural commission, and I was talking through the details about it. and the energy of the work environment just like wasn't aligning with my vision and like my creative process. So I made the very difficult decision to step down from that project that I thought was going to be like the most exciting project in my career, which took a lot of chutzpah and like it was scary. And then literally a week later, I get an email out of the blue just being like, hey, like we thought you might be a good fit for this project. So what the project
Oh,
was is
wow.
it is an international campaign for International Day of Families that Samsung put on, and they selected 3 artists. One was me in San Diego, and then there was an illustrator, I believe, in Paris, and then a photographer in London, or it may have been the photographer was in Paris, but and we were commissioned to create on a very tight deadline artwork that of what family represents to us. And as I mentioned, I had recently gotten engaged to the love of my life, Chris, and I
Yeah.
created this painting celebrating our love and our coming together as family. And that was exciting enough. And I knew going into this project that they were going to post it on their Instagram channels all over the world. And it was like crazy. Like the day they released it, it was like, Samsung India tagged you, Samsung Korea tagged you. I was like, whoa.
Wow.
But I did not know that they were also going to be on, that my painting was also going to be on billboards all over the world. So I only
Oh,
found out
wow.
like the day before that it was happening because I don't think they knew. And I, of course, bought a ticket to New York instantly. And my painting was on a billboard in Times Square, like in the center of it. And
Oh
it
my
was on a
God.
billboard in Piccadilly Circus in London and on
Oh
the
my,
Duomo in Milan, which I'm sure you're
oh
familiar with
my
having studied in
God.
Milan.
Oh my
um,
God.
yeah, so that was just like the craziest, most affirming
That
moment in my life.
is,
And just a couple weeks ago, I think Chris and I were just in New York, like looking up at this billboard of the 2 of us. And like, I keep joking because I'm like, oh yeah, like we're going to keep this engagement really low key. Like, I don't want to publicize it, like our love is sacred. I'm not trying to like, I'm not trying to make a big deal. Like, this is private, this is personal. And then we're like looking up at this billboard of us in Times Square. And I'm like, oh, the universe was like, fuck
yeah,
you, man. That's not
you,
happening. I thought that was
we'll show
hilarious.
you.
Yeah, we'll show you. You want to be low key about
Oh,
anything? Watch us.
anything. This is what okay, so this
Yeah.
is what actually Sarah's Loki is.
This is,
It's
yeah,
not
this is
the
it.
universe. The universe is matching your energy. It's like
Oh
the
my God,
universe,
I love
like
it. We're setting a new
you're
bar. This
Loki.
is low
Yeah,
key.
this is Loki. It's only going to get better.
Oh my God,
So
yes. I
next
need to
time,
write that down.
yeah, next time when you're talking to the universe, this is your set. Loki means just the international billboards,
Okay,
a
cool.
few
Noted.
international expectations. Yeah,
I
then
can't
we'll
wait
go
to talk
higher.
in 10 years and see what low key means then.
Done. We'll
Great.
do that quicker. I'm sure it's going to take much faster than this 10 years, of
Yeah,
course.
probably.
Yeah, I'm sure that. Perfect. That's been amazing. I think I think the most fun interview I've had.
Oh,
And I think
yay.
now comes the most favorite part because if these questions were so fun, I can't even imagine how fun the rapid fire is going to
Okay.
be. So we'll quickly move to the rapid fire. I have a set of fun questions. You have to be quick. I will be quick. Just give me what comes to your mind.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, are you ready?
I think so.
Let's go. Okay.
Yes.
One, two, three. One thing you want to convey through your work in the arts.
Joy, personal power, and self awareness.
Awesome. What's that one word that describes you the best?
Mm, colorful.
Love that. Okay, this is my favorite question. If you could have a studio anywhere in the world, where would it be?
I'm already working on it. I am working on a studio swap in London, hoping to do it in 2023. And I'm also interested in a studio in New York City right now. But
Oh
also,
my
I was thinking
god.
Thailand would be really cool. So I'm actively
Really?
seeking all those things out. So if anyone listening has the hookup in New York or Thailand, I'm interested, but I've got London covered.
Love that. Amazing. So you're already swapping, moving, hopping studios.
Yeah, why not?
Let's have one. Let's have one in Italy as well. Then I'll come
Oh,
also.
okay,
I'll
let's
also
do
come over.
it.
Perfect. Your biggest source of inspiration.
Right now, Chris, I'm like covering the house with a lot of paintings of our love. I'm like pretty obsessed.
Oh, Samson triggered some great love for you. I mean, some lot of inspiration for you actually.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool. I mean, like my work is
Yeah.
such a reflection of my life, and I've been really into like I'm making a series right now about the things I wanted to bring into my life, along with like a lot of paintings of love. So yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Okay. Who is your favorite women artist?
It always
Anyone from any
changes.
point
There
of
are so
time.
many. But lately, just the first person that comes to mind, I've been really into Human, who's a muralist based out of
Okay.
Oakland, who just, I mean, I'm just obsessed with like women who make giant paintings. Like, I think it's the most badass, like rebellious thing
Yeah, I
ever.
do
And
too.
it's so inspiring. And her color and her figuration is just so beautiful. It's
Love
Hueman.
that. I'm going to check her out and I'm going to link her in the show notes. So
Oh,
you can,
great.
anyone who's listening can go find her out. Okay. Who's your go-to person when you're in trouble or in need of an advice?
Chris or my mom?
Uh, okay. This is a little more, just hear me out. Can you share like what has been your favorite moment as an artist? Like, can you pinpoint one out of many that made you feel like, oh my God, you're so grateful for being like this life that you're living as an artist?
Yes, when I was standing in Times Square
I
and I
knew
saw my
that. I was
painting.
so sure you're going to talk about that. I
Yeah.
love that picture of yours.
Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah. So obviously, I had to like plan a last minute photo shoot, like three outfit changes. I haven't posted all of them yet, but it was pretty
But
fun.
you
So my
really captured
yeah,
really captured that energy. And I think what really inspires me, like what you really inspire me is like how you like seal every moment with so much enthusiasm and joy. And I think all of us needs to learn that from you.
oh, thank you.
Perfect. If you were to meet younger Sarah today, what advice would you give her?
Mm, I would say stay true to yourself, and you don't need to be everything for everyone.
Oh, love that. Last, last question. As as a woman, as a creative entrepreneur, as a female entrepreneur, what's that one word in advice that you would want to give to people coming behind you?
Um,
One word. What would be that
it
one
has to be
word?
one word.
You can take two, let's say.
Oh my god, two words.
I'll be graceful.
Um, no rules.
Ah, wow, very innovative.
Thanks for giving me two.
Hmm.
I don't know how I would have done it with one.
It would be only rules. So, yeah, no rules. That makes more sense. Perfect. Sarah, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. I think my morning's made. I have all the energy.
Oh,
And I really, really appreciate you for your time, for everything that you've, like, how warm and wonderful you've been. I have one more last question is, do you have anything upcoming that you would like to share with our listeners? Any new project, some event that we can, share it with our audience? And that where can our audience find you and support you?
yes. Well, thank you so much, first of all, Chakura. It's been like such a pleasure talking with you, and you're obviously so warm and welcoming and very easy to talk to. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
And anyone who's listening can find me on my Instagram. That's Sarah, SarahStieb, as in boy, ER. And the website is also just Sarah Stieber, everything Sarah Stieber, Facebook as well. As far as things coming up, I am developing a new series. I'm very excited. Pretty much sold out of all of the tape paintings that we talked about. So I'm
Oh,
developing a new body of them. I just started, and I'm hoping to do a pop-up gallery this winter. So that's sort of what I'm working towards, is
yeah.
doing kind of like a awesome entrepreneurial, like crazy
I've read
colorful
about
show.
that. You
I like to
you
do those,
do.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I also have pretty recently released my jewelry line, and each piece of
Yeah,
my jewelry is inspired by one of my paintings. And so I'm very excited about that. And I'm always adding like new pieces, and that's been such a fun like side journey as well, or like it's an
yeah,
integrated journey. I feel like it's very much part of the work, and like bringing my mission of bringing the art and the empowerment into the world. So check that
love
out as
that.
well on my website or on my Instagram.
I can check those out on you right now. They look stunning.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I just wear them all the time.
Love them. They're gorgeous. I think the other day I was on a call with Kat. It was, I think, one of her calls, and she was also wearing one of your earrings. And I was like, you're wearing Sarah Stieber's. So we can
Wait,
recognize
who
your
was it?
work.
Was it Kat?
Yeah, that was
Oh yeah,
Kat.
she has these same ones.
Oh, is it?
Uh-huh. I love
Love.
her.
Oh, me too. Always a cat cheerleader.
Oh, seriously, really amazing.
Amazing. So thanks to her that I have you here. I know about your work. Of course, I think I knew about your work even earlier, but I think it just gave us the connection
Hmm.
to find, like, for me to find you. So that was amazing. Again, I really want to say a big thank you. This was really, really amazing. I had a lot of fun, and I really mean it, and I really am grateful for you for doing it for so full of heart, and I mean so amazingly. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time,
Oh, thank you so much. Really such a pleasure. And I look forward to
and
talking
I'll
sooner than later.
yes, and I'm sure we'll have you back again soon with lots more. There's so much that we haven't, so maybe sometime again soon.
Let's do it. I'm looking forward to
Yeah,
it. All right, well, enjoy the rest of
perfect.
your day, and I'll probably just like go
Same.
to sleep now. Just kidding.
Perfect. Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. You can find all the details and links mentioned in the show notes of this episode available on www.arts2heartsproject.com. And if you like this episode, please don't forget to tag us in your stories and leave us a review here on iTunes or any of your favorite platforms. It really helps us to keep the show going. Thank you so much. I'm sending you lots of love, and I can't wait to be back here soon again. Bye.